Hello. As you can tell, I am not at the yoga studio today. I decided to do the Facebook Live directly from my regular studio as opposed to Yoganomics because of the July 4th holiday weekend. We figured that a lot of people were going to be away on vacation or still having barbecues or all that kind of stuff. So I figured I still wanted to give you the Soul Gatherings group that we started last week and keep going the momentum and the learning and all the great stuff that we're going to be going through. And I had really great stuff for you today, so I wanted to make sure that I still gave it to you so that you could, still get some great information, even if you're not able to come to any of the Soul Gatherings actually physically in Medford, New York. So hello to everyone. Good night. I hope everyone's having a wonderful evening, and I hope you had a wonderful day. So I have a lot of really great things planned for you today. I have some great questions. So if you have not yet done so, make sure you bring a writing utensil and a piece of paper, journal, gratitude journal, whatever it is that you use. I always recommend for my clients to bring and buy some kind of gratitude journal around with them so that way they can write stuff down. So if you have one of those, go grab it. I'm going to have some questions for you. I've got some stories to share. As you come on, make sure you say hello so that I know that you are there and I can say hi back. And also as we go, as always, make sure you ask questions. And I would love that when I ask the questions for you to journal, I would love for you to also share with the group. So that way other people can see what you're thinking. I know what you're thinking. And if you have any questions of your own, please don't hesitate to ask me those questions. I am here to be of service to you. So if there's anything that you would like more information about, or even if it's not related to anything that I'm talking about here, please go ahead and ask those questions. As a coach, I work all the time with my clients and everyone needs a little something different. So if there's something that you're saying, hey, I just really feel like I need to know the answer to this question, ask that question because it's a pretty good chance that someone else is watching and they're thinking exactly the same thing, or maybe they can't put it into words. And then all of a sudden you ask, they're like, oh, that's what I wanted to know. Thank you so much. So please don't hesitate. Don't feel badly about asking questions. And again, if I don't get to answer, maybe I'm in a stream of consciousness talking and you have a question I don't answer right away, I will definitely go back and answer it. If not during the live, then I will definitely answer it afterwards. So hello to everyone who is tuning in. It's so good to see so many people coming on and so many friendly faces that are out there. So hello to everyone. And again, everyone who's local, I'm hoping that, I think I'm going to be away next week, so I will do another Facebook Live, not from the studio, but I will be doing these regularly on Sundays at 7:30, if not from Yoganomics in Medford, then at least from my studio or from wherever I'm going to be, which is going to be a little bit of adventure because I do travel a lot during the summertime. So you'll be seeing me in different locales while we do all of these things. So I have some questions for you. I have some stories, I guess, for you as well. We were driving today, and there was someone in front of us that did not use their turn signal. And anyone ever notice that, where they have someone driving in front of them? And of course, we're all perfect drivers, right? So we always use our turn signals. But the person in front of us did not use our turn signal. They kind of cut us off and went in front of us. And I was driving. My husband, David, was in the passenger seat. The kids were in the back. And I was thinking about how a traffic or a turn signal, how much that is related to communication. That person that cut in front of us was not communicating that they were going to turn. And so I started thinking right away. I was like, that's really interesting. I wonder if there is any kind of correlation between people not using their turn signal and people's ability to communicate. Are we having trouble communicating? So what is the problem? And of course, I have no idea, but it started to make me think about wow, this is such an obvious thing. Why would I not communicate that I'm going to turn so that I can let somebody else know that I'm going to be coming into their lane, or I'm going to be changing direction or changing whatever it is that I'm doing to let the other person know? It's kind of like a little bit thoughtless to not use your turn signal. So, it got my mind thinking, of course, as a coach who works all the time with communication and boundaries, and that's really what I want to focus on today. So, bam, there we go. Where else are we not communicating? And why are we not communicating? I mean, it's really not hard to click our turn signal and let other people know what we're doing. So where are we not clicking our turn signal? Where are we not letting people know? And why are we not letting people know what we want and need. What direction are we going in? And letting people know that is part of healthy communication. So, for a lot of people that are codependent and have not learned healthy skills for communicating, there's a lot of reasons why we don't communicate effectively. And a lot of us, we didn't learn those skills growing up. And so we don't know how to use them now. And as codependents, it's really kind of uncomfortable for us to share our thoughts and feelings for a lot of variety of different reasons. So why do you think that there are so many unhappy people in this world? Why do you think there are so many people sitting around, unhappy with their lives and afraid to share what their needs are? Give me your thoughts. If you can think about what those are, you can write them down, whatever your first intention or your first thoughts are. Why do you think there are so many unhappy people? People that their lives are not the way they'd like them to be, but they're not making any changes to make it any different. So feel free if you would like to share your own thoughts about it, or comment on what somebody else is saying, but please write that down. And as you were thinking about that, I want to share another story. So I'm a landlord. I have tenants. They're young. They're 22 years old. And about 2 weeks ago, I had an issue with one of my tenants. Good one. And I know that's not Rhonda, so good job. I had an issue with one of my tenants. It's a couple. It's a male and a female. And they are engaged to be married. And about 2 weeks ago, there was an issue where they were fighting. And they were fighting so badly that it came out of the apartment and into the neighborhood. And there was up and down the street, like just big stress and big, drama. I heard a little bit of it, but not really much because I was dealing with my almost 9-month-old baby. And my neighbors actually sent me a text message that I didn't get till the next day saying, hey, what's going on with your tenants? There's they're arguing and whatever. So I go to confront my tenant, the male tenant. And at first I speak to the female and she's very, very apologetic. And I speak to the male and he is arrogant, to say it nicely. I mean, just not very nice about any of it at all. Now, old codependent me might have been a little bit uncomfortable with, I'm going to go and confront this couple about what's going on. And when his reaction was the way it was, I think old codependent me would have been like, let me step back because that is not something that I am comfortable with. He's obviously angry that I am confronting him. So healthy me is like, I don't like the way his behavior is. I can see that blackness. And that when someone is, angry and they've lost the ability to care about the consequences, they kind of get that blackness in their eyes. My ex-husband did that on our wedding night. I've seen that in other people that have gotten really angry, that rageful look in their eyes, that look of just like not caring about consequences. So I saw that. I got this kind of bad feeling in the pit of my stomach. And I said to him, listen, if there's ever a possibility of the police being called to my house again, and if they are actually called, you are out. I am not putting up with this anymore. And so I gave him that boundary. And so, some issues in between, with music being too loud or whatever. And then last weekend, all of a sudden at 3:30 in the morning, I get a knock on my front door, and it is a very nice police officer looking for my tenant. And it ended up that his girlfriend had called and said she needed help. So immediately, I'm freaking out at first. I'm thinking, what's going on? I send the police to where the tenants actually live, and they go speak to the male, and they end up saying, okay, everything's fine, nothing else to be worried about, whatever. So the police leave, and the tenant goes back to his place. The girlfriend is gone. She's been picked up by her father. And right away, I'm thinking, okay, well, now he's got to leave. That was it. I gave my boundary. I actually set that boundary, and then I have to follow through with it. Now, for a lot of people, what happens is in that moment, they say, okay, wow, they didn't follow through on that boundary. I told them something that I needed. They didn't listen. Should I give them another chance? Should I maybe explain it to them a little bit better? Codependent people would like to give more and more reasons for them to feel better. They want them to say, hey, they're going to change. It's going to get better. They're only 22. There was alcohol involved. They didn't know any better. There's all of those things that go around that kind of confrontation. And Healthy me right away says, it's not comfortable, but I'm going to follow through with a boundary anyway. So we send him a message the next day and we say, listen, we need to talk. Obviously, there's some issues that are going on that we need to talk about. So we want to try to actually set a conversation with him, the girlfriend, my husband, and myself. We want to figure it out together. So instead of him being respectful, he right away starts becoming arrogant and rude and goes on telling us that it is none of our business. And again, I said, the cops were called. I told you that if that ever was going to happen again, that you would be out. So he says, stop sending me messages. We're going to squat. You're going to have to evict us. Okay, I won't send you any more messages. So now my mind goes back. Now this is for, again, codependent, uncomfortable. You might say to yourself, ooh, okay, now what do I do? I'm uncomfortable. He's now, and this guy, like, and I said to David, I was like, it's really funny because this is such a typical, whether you want to call him a narcissist, he's not a healthy person. So this is something that I've seen with exes over and over again. So I'm automatic mode now because I'm like, ooh, I know exactly what he's doing. He's trying to show, he's trying to puff up and he's trying to show how strong he is and how he doesn't have to listen to anybody else. So he's really trying to be scary. Now for me, this is not scary. This is, I don't like this. I don't want this in my vicinity. I need this out. I don't need this drama around me. This kind of puffing up doesn't scare me at all. It makes me just push that much harder. So I go back and I think to myself, okay, he is a person who is, intimidation. So he is someone who is in the military reserves. He's in the Army reserves. So my dad is retired Air Force. So first thing I think is his superior officer is not going to be very happy about any of this going on. So I actually couldn't find his number right away. David ended up finding the number. David's like, I'll call. So he calls the superior officer and he says to the officer, listen, I just want you to know that we're having some issues with this tenant and we would like your help. And so the officer right away says, I am so sorry that this is going on. I vouched for him. I am embarrassed that he is behaving this way after I am the one who vouched for him. That is disrespectful towards me. I am sorry that he's being disrespectful towards you and your family and the fact that you have 2 small children. There should not be any reason to have the police coming to your house. And so we go, we go back and forth and we explain to him everything that's going on. And he ends up saying, listen, if he will not come out on his own and pay what he owes you, because he was also late on rent, if he doesn't pay what he owes you and he doesn't get out when he's supposed to, he said, I will come myself and remove him from the premises. Okay. He said, well, I'll call you back in a few minutes. So now the superior officer hangs up the phone. David and I hang up the phone. We look at each other. David looks at me. He's like, wow, you called that. I'm like, yeah, I sure did. Because about 5 minutes later, we get a phone call from my tenant. We don't answer because we want everything to be written down. We get a text message. The tenant says, I am sorry, sir, for my inappropriate behavior. And then, something else, one or two other lines, and says, there will be no issues for me. I'll get out by the end of the month. And so David looks at me, we high five each other. And he's like, how did you know? I said, because that's the personality. They are looking to intimidate. They're looking to scare. And now here's the thing that I want everyone to think about for all of those things. If you are someone who is uncomfortable with that confrontation, what ends up happening is that we don't confront that issue. We don't confront the problem that's there. As soon as that person tries to intimidate and push at us, yeah, exactly, taking care of business, hell yeah. That person starts coming at us, we're like, oh no, you're right, I'm sorry. And that's the automatic codependent behavior, is we don't trust ourselves. We don't trust ourselves to have the ability to stand up for ourselves and do the right thing for ourselves. But when we do that, we actually set ourselves up for more issues. So back to this tenant, he goes back, he sends it, I'm sorry, sir, blah, blah, blah. And then, the superior officer calls us back and says, did you hear from him? We said, well, yes. And he actually was very respectful. And then the next day, he actually sent us another message because we were having issues with the Wi-Fi. Excuse me, sir, I am so sorry to ask this, but has the Wi-Fi password been changed? Or something like that. And we both looked at each other again and I was like, that's all you have to do. You have to know how to push back in the healthy, appropriate way. You want to make sure that you're not doing it in a way where there's going to be retaliation, and you want to make sure that you are in a safe place. So if you're not sure if you're in a safe place, you want to get the right people. So call the police if you need to. Call family members. So if you're in a situation where you are in an unhealthy situation and you're not sure about how to really assert that boundary, call the right people, get the right support to make sure that you are doing it the right way. But this is like a big thing. Think about the smaller things that you might be afraid or uncomfortable to set those boundaries with. What is it? Is it about kids doing chores? Is it about appropriate behavior in the house from your children? Is it about expectations from a spouse in a healthy relationship? Is it, a relative of yours that you're kind of tired of them doing whatever? A friend of yours that you're tired of kind of dealing with the same thing? And we're afraid to say something. So let me play it out. Let me play it out as if, let's go backwards. The tenant, he does not, he causes all these problems, the police come. I am being codependent and I am not feeling strong in my own skin. So the codependent me, go through that, has that interaction with, first of all, might not have that interaction with that person to begin with. I would go around to my friends and I would say, oh my gosh, my tenant, he's so terrible. They're so terrible. It's so frustrating. And I would go on and on talking about how terrible this person is. And now months might go by and I'm now starting to feel really uncomfortable in my house. And I've told everybody else in the world, but I haven't actually confronted the people that need to be confronted. All right, so then next, maybe you are starting to get a little bit stronger as codependent self and you say, hey, I'm just going to nicely go and ask them to stop having issues and to stop causing problems in my house. So you go and meekly knock on the door and you say, excuse me, but you're being too loud and I really would appreciate if you could stop being so loud. And they're like, get out of my face, this isn't your business, whatever, which is pretty much what he said to me. You're not my mother, you can't tell me what to do. Can you imagine saying to your landlord, you're not my mother, you can't tell me what to do? Really? Okay, but anyway, so codependent you says, oh, okay, yeah, and you feel really uncomfortable and you walk away from that. Now more time goes by. So now you're at 6 months, 8 months, maybe a year, and you're really, really uncomfortable. And now things start to escalate. Now, God forbid something happens now with that relationship. Now something happens where that girl is put in a dangerous situation. Now there's something where that guy, as he runs off and into his car and drives off full speed, he gets into a car accident with someone. Or something happens with a neighbor. Now all of these other bad things happen because you did not stand up for yourself. You did not communicate your boundaries in an effective way because it was uncomfortable. But look at all the months of discomfort you have created for yourself. Look at for all of that time that you did not say what was on your mind and in your heart, knowing that it was the right thing to do. You didn't do it because, ooh, that feels icky. Ooh, that feels uncomfortable. I'm going to have to confront them. Ooh, I don't know. Act in spite of the fear. That heart pounding in your chest, that tightness when you want to talk, that your voice feels almost like it won't be heard because you feel so uncomfortable and it feels so awkward. That's when you know you're doing the right thing. Is when you say it because you know that you need to. And act even though you know it's going to cause you discomfort, because you know that if you don't say or do what you need to do, it's going to cause longer pain later on. So here we are now to what's going on here. In the next 2 weeks or so, those tenants are going to be moved out, and I'm going to be able to have new tenants move in the beginning of August. That's only a few weeks of dealing with the possibility of, them not being happy with me. But I also have a very quick phone call to a superior officer who will make sure that there's no inappropriate behavior by him or anyone else that he knows. So I have that I have that ability, and I am sticking to it. And it also allows him to know that you don't mess with me. So now I've kind of put my feet firmly in the ground. This is my boundary. You are not allowed to cross this. And this is what happens as a consequence. And I had said, you give people a heads up what their consequences are going to be. You're going to be thrown out. You're going to have your superior officer, whatever it is. So you are wanting to make sure that you really set up your ability to be firm and to trust yourself and to say what you mean and say what you need. So I have some people that have made some Thanks, enjoying your video. Thank you. One never gets too smart to learn more in regard to relationships and behavior. Thank you as always for your techniques. So thank you, Doris. And yes, definitely the disrespect and taking care of business. Yeah, and all of this, and Corinne, I knew it was you. I didn't know if you went by Corinne, without being Rhoda. So I didn't want to use your real name without permission. But anyway, okay, so all of those things hopefully will help. So I have some questions for you. Or I have some things for you to think about. One of the questions that I have is, why do you say yes? Why do you say yes to bad or unhealthy behavior in your life? So this is a journaling activity. So I'm going to give you like a minute. I'm going to just sit here quietly, and I'm going to allow you to think about why it is that you allow bad or unhealthy behavior in your own personal life. So maybe that unhealthy tenant, maybe you've allowed that type of unhealthy behavior in your own life. And I would love for you to take 1 minute, and if you started writing already, then even better, and write down why it is that you allow unhealthy, bad behavior in your life. Not what you're going to do about it, just why you allow it. So I'll give you about a minute or so, maybe a little bit less now, and really think about it. And then if you can share in this thread, that would be awesome too. All right, another 30 seconds. And you can always go back. You can always pause it and go back. All right, so I'm seeing some comments come up. If you are still writing, please continue your train of thought, write it down, and please definitely share it in the comments as well. Lenora said, sometimes I will do it because I think they are my friend and I can trust them. Well, friends need boundaries too. Family that you trust, people that you love need boundaries too. My husband is my best friend. We need boundaries too. There are things where unless you actually stand up for what your boundaries are, the other person is not going to know what your needs are. We are not mind readers. So when we say to someone, and it could be something really simple. It could be something like, I don't know, putting the recyclables out correctly. Or, when you're in a relationship, some of the things get kind of like small. You think it's not that big of a deal. But those things can become really big. If you're constantly frustrated with that person because they're doing something that really, really frustrates you and you never tell them, well, you can't really expect them to make any changes because they can't know that it's frustrating you. And in a team where you're respecting each other, then there's going to be trying to figure out what that is together. So once you let them know what's bothering you and you let them know a boundary, some of the things are they're little boundaries. Hey, can you let me know before you make plans? If not, I'm not going to say yes when you make plans without talking to me about it. Bam, that's a simple boundary. That's a really easy one. Hey, if you don't put the garbage bag in the garbage can, then I'm going to, without thinking, throw garbage in there and then there's going to be no bag. I mean, whatever is something that's simple and seems like not a big deal, those little things that you were afraid to talk about in your own personal relationship will become bigger in that relationship because what else are you not talking about? But also in your other relationships with other people. Are you expecting people to just know who you are and what you need and what you want? Boundaries are meant to make us, that's why fences, what do they say? Good fences make good neighbors, right? So that's why we have fences. Think about like the space around your body. And when things start coming into that space, that comfort zone, when things start coming in, whether it's emotionally or physically, how do you react to that? Do you let people know that you're not comfortable with someone coming into your personal space, whether that personal space is physical or that personal space is emotional? How do you let someone know that it's uncomfortable? Everyone has different comfort levels. Some people, and I was talking about this with a friend of mine the other day, I'm an extrovert. I love talking to people. I actually get energized talking to people. If I'm not talking to people after a day or two and interacting, I start to feel really uncomfortable. I need that. Well, some people are introverts. Talking to people all the time is exhausting. My husband is an introvert. I am an extrovert. So there are times where, I'll be chatting and we'll be talking and most of the time that's fine. But sometimes David will turn around and say, hey, I need 5 minutes of just quiet. I'm going to go upstairs and just give myself a few minutes. Okay, cool. There we go. That's a boundary. He needs some time to refresh, to recharge, and then he wants to come back. It's not because he doesn't want to hear what I have to say. It doesn't mean that he's mad at me. It means that he needs his own space and he's not afraid to tell me that's what he needs. That's what you should be doing in a relationship that is healthy. And again, whatever type of relationship that is, and respecting that boundary is really important. Another question for you. A chameleon. Anyone ever meet anyone where they're kind of different wherever they are? I had a friend of mine when I was in my first marriage, first bad relationship, but that was after a few of them. So my first marriage, I had this friend of mine, and I remember her and I got along really great. And I started to realize that whenever we were with other people, she would be different. And depending on who we were with, she would be different with those people. And at one point, she actually said to me that she was a chameleon. And I thought, that's an interesting choice of words. And I thought, well, I think she means that she can get along with anybody. Now, I can get along with pretty much anybody. If I don't get along with you, it's fine. I don't take it personally. But I can get along with most people. So at first I was thinking, oh, okay, well, she's just someone that gets along well. And then I started to think about how her behavior was different. And if you know what a chameleon is, obviously, whenever they're in a different environment, their camouflage changes to match their environment. So that person is someone who goes around and has no real sense of self. They are so worried about fitting in and not making any waves with anyone that they just kind of put themselves into a situation. They look around to see how everybody is talking and what they are doing, and then they assimilate to whatever that is. And then they're not really showing who they are. Now, I'm not saying that you need to come in and be disrespectful to anyone. You definitely need to come in and look around and talk to people and see what the community is like and things like that. But that shouldn't change your personality. It shouldn't change who you actually are. So when you're going into a situation, you are still inherently you, and you behave that way without looking around and being like, ooh, who do I have to be? That's exhausting. It's tiring. And then how can you attract a healthy partner if you don't even know who you are because you're a different person with different people? Start to get more comfortable with yourself. Start to feel like, hey, I can be me wherever I am. I do not need to be a chameleon that goes into my environment, looks around to see what or who I can be. So here's another question for you. How do you think that a chameleon can affect their personal lives? Or how do you think being a chameleon can really affect your personal life? And this comes to anything in your personal life. And I'm going to add to that, if someone is a chameleon, how do you think they got there? So maybe that is yourself, where you're like, oh my gosh, that's me. I go into places and I'm looking around to see how everybody is, and I kind of feel myself, interacting with even like sometimes, I've seen people that they almost get the same accent, and you're like, whoa, you didn't have an accent before. Now all of a sudden you've got an accent, you're doing this like hair flippy thing you don't normally do, So where is it that you can see someone as a chameleon? How is it affecting other relationships that they have? And how do you think they got there? So give yourself about a minute and start answering this question. All right, another 30 seconds. All right, and again, if you are still writing, keep writing. If you are, done, then please share whatever your comments are in the thread. And if you are watching this on the replay, just make sure that you respond anyway, and I will come back and answer your questions. So Raymond said, Raymond, I'm just trying to see what you're saying. How you are in the world on Facebook. All right, sorry, maybe you can rewrite that, Raymond, because I don't really understand what you're asking in that question. Mariah said, it makes me feel something beside my own pain. So that's one of the things that happens, is that because a lot of us are so worried about taking care of other people, we have been taught that we need to kind of walk on eggshells around other people. And so it keeps us, it's a coping mechanism. So we actually will say subconsciously, well, I don't have to really feel my full feelings. I don't have to take responsibility for myself. There's no blame, because we're blaming ourselves enough. As codependents, we have this shame, we have this guilt, we have all this frustration, we have all these different feelings that are coming around for us. But when we are focused on these other people, then all of those shame, guilt, and frustrated feelings, we don't have to feel them, because we're focusing all of our attention on somebody else. And the thing I say to everybody all the time is, how hard is it to work on ourselves? Why do we think that we can change somebody else? I have clients that come and spend weeks with me that work really, really hard and have some really great forward momentum. And it's hard and it's uncomfortable, but they push through and they make those changes. How can anyone say, hey, if I nag this person enough, maybe they're going to change. Maybe they're going to finally get it. Well, that's kind of one of the other things that I was going to say. When you don't allow yourself to ask for help when needed, you take away others' opportunity to give back to you. So here's something that I want you to think about. If you do not share with other people that you need help, and you're constantly taking the responsibility of everybody else, then you don't give them an opportunity to help you, but you also don't give them an opportunity to deal with the consequences of their own behavior. So what do I mean by that? You have someone in your family who's an alcoholic, and you're constantly picking them up from the bar. You're giving them money to go out drinking, drugs, whatever you want it to be. You constantly pick them up from the bar, you give them money, you make excuses, you call their boss and say, hey, they're running 15 minutes late. You let them borrow your car. You drive them to work because you're afraid that they're going to lose money. You lie for them. You hide things for them. Well, guess what? You're enabling them. And in enabling them, you are not allowing them to get or take responsibility for the bad decisions that they make. Who's taking the responsibility for that? You. What are you learning from that? You're learning that you're needed. Does it make you feel good to feel needed? Well, for a lot of us codependents, it does. It feels good to be needed, and it feels good to be able to say to the other person, and again, subconsciously for a lot of us, it feels good. You're messed up, you're wrong, and we're pointing fingers at all the things that they're doing wrong. And we're not giving them the opportunity to take responsibility for their own behavior. And all us who are constantly helping other people, where we're constantly focused on helping other people, I got this. I don't need anyone to help me. Fine, I can do this all by myself. What we're doing is we are negating other people's ability to help us. And we're pretty much saying to them, I don't trust you to be able to help me. I don't appreciate what you're able to give me back. I don't need what you have to offer. Well, if we don't need them and we don't trust anything they have to offer, why are we in a relationship with them? Relationships are give and take. And that doesn't mean that it's always 50-50. Sometimes it's 90, sometimes it's 10, sometimes it's 70, sometimes it's 30. Kind of will go this little ebb and flow. But there's, allowing the other person to help us actually strengthens that relationship. Asking for help is really important in any kind of relationship that you're in. Allowing the other person to take responsibility for their own behavior, to be able to be given the chance to follow through on what they said they're going to follow through with. Another question. I'll give you another minute or so. Does the inability to confront others cause more guilt? So does the inability to confront others cause more guilt? Give yourself a minute to answer that. You're welcome, Mariah. All right, 30 seconds. All right, and if you are still writing, of course, keep writing. I don't want to take away your train of thought. I have one more question for you, and then I'm going to open it up if you have any questions for me. The last question, again, 1 minute to write down your feelings and thoughts, journal activity in your journal or gratitude journal, a piece of paper, whatever it is that you're using. But here is the final question that I'm asking for you. Does saying no leave you feeling a fear of being punished, shamed, unspiritual, abandonment? Why? All right, so I'm going to ask the question again and then give you a minute. Does saying no leave you feeling a fear of being punished, shamed, unspiritual, feeling abandonment, and why? So 1 minute. Thirty seconds. Okay. Please share whatever your responses are to those questions. Hi, Kathy. Mariah said yes because the problem is still there. Yes, we try to avoid different issues that are going on, and we just push off that problem to a later time and date. In fact, a question that I was just going to ask you was about avoidance. Where are you avoiding things in your life? Where have you avoided things, possibilities that you can have? Now, avoidance, so we've just been talking about communication. We've been talking about saying what you mean and meaning what you say. Avoidance isn't just trying to avoid the discomfort. Sometimes we avoid the positive. We're so used to saying no to the bad stuff, and we have this fear of whatever that fear is. And a lot of the time, the fear is not even real. We've pushed ourselves up and talked ourselves up to this point where we have all this fear that's going on, and it doesn't even happen. So we've worried ourselves sick. We've thought about all the worst case scenarios, and then bam, it didn't even happen, and we've avoided dealing with whatever issue, or we've avoided something really wonderful. So I know I said that was going to be the last question, but I really want you to think about this. Have you avoided positive or healthy things in your life, and why? Go ahead, 1 minute, write it down. And please, again, share whatever your responses are in the thread below. Have you avoided healthy things or positive things in your life, and why? $30 seconds. Okay, if you are still writing, please keep writing. So Mariah said, yeah, the problems are still there. So at this point, I'd like to open it up to questions. So if you have a question for me, whether it's from what I've just been talking about with communication, codependency, boundaries, avoidance, any of those things that are going on, you can ask about those questions. If you have other questions, please feel free to ask me those questions as well. And, of course, in, working with clients, these are the type of things that we look at, is we look at how we get to where we are and what we need to do to change it. So all of these questions are things that are important to ask yourself. They're good things to talk about. And if you just are tuning in and you didn't get to hear the part about my tenets and avoiding that uncomfortable behavior, definitely go back and watch it. Because I cannot stress that enough, that very often for people that are dealing with issues of codependency, we don't like confrontation. It's what I hear all the time from my clients. It's something that I used to deal with in the past, and I have realized through my own healing, and of course working with my clients as well, is all of that avoidance of the discomfort keeps us trapped. It keeps us trapped in a life that is subpar. It keeps us trapped in a life that we are not living our purpose. We are not as happy or as healthy as we can be because of all of these fears. We are afraid of confronting. We are afraid of disappointing our family. You know, when it comes to people who are religious, there is a lot. I was brought up going to church every Sunday. We were involved in the church like crazy. I had a fear of letting down my family because I had promised to be married. And once you're married, you stay married. So I had this fear that was there. You know, I've done wrong. I did the wrong thing. What can I do to be better in my marriage, to be a better wife, even though it was a completely unhealthy relationship to begin with? And all of those things kept me trapped. They kept me trapped for 5 years. For some of you, it might have been keeping you trapped for 10 years, 20 years, 30 years. Everyone's in different places in their healing. Some people aren't even married yet. They already see the red flags. They already know things aren't working well. But because they're afraid of being alone, they're hoping for them to get married and stay attached to this person. So that avoiding the difficult conversation of breaking up with an unhealthy relationship, no matter where you are in the relationship, just prolongs the pain. It just prolongs the discomfort. So if you are not sure about what you need to do, start writing down what you need in life. Start looking at where you are. Answer the questions that I asked throughout this video and start really thinking about and being honest with yourself. Where is all of this stuff coming from? And if you're not sure what to do and you're like, I don't even know where to start, then please let us know. Reach out to us because we have groups that are running all the time that we can, help support you if that's what you're looking for, if you are ready to start making those changes. And for those of you that still aren't ready and you're still saying, hey, now at least I know what's going on and I want to sit with it for a little while. I want to keep learning. I want to keep sitting with this for a little while. That's fine. For those of you who are ready, then, reach out to us. But for those of you who aren't, keep learning, keep educating yourself, keep taking these types of, keep watching these videos and listening to podcasts and start to really focus on yourself and really get yourself built up so that you can get the strength to have your voice heard. And when you are ready to have your voice heard, getting the right support will help push you through to the other side. Your voice matters. Not sharing what is on your mind is a disservice to you, and it's a disservice to those around you. Now, are there any questions for me from anyone who's watching? And again, of course, if you're watching this or listening to this as a recording, then just go back. Whatever questions you have, I will be answering all of them. So don't feel badly about missing this on the live. Are there any questions for me? I know there's a little bit of a lag. I don't see anything. If you start writing and I end up, and I end the Facebook Live, then just keep writing and I will go back and respond to anything. But this was really beneficial for a lot of people. I know there was a lot of stuff that we talked about that is going to really help a lot of people. So make sure you give us a high five, share this with whomever you think could use this information. And of course, keep posting, keep commenting, keep learning. You are the knight in shining armor for yourself. Now, that doesn't mean that you don't need the right support. We do, because our faulty thinking is what got us here. But if you keep looking for somebody else to come and save the day, it's not going to happen. It ain't going to happen, honey. You got to do that yourself. So once you start realizing, hey, I got to do the work, I've got to put my foot down, take responsibility, feel the fear, the discomfort, act anyway because I know it's in my best interest. I trust myself to know what is right for me. I trust myself to know that I'm making the right decision and that all things will work out if I just take this leap, if I just make this statement and let the universe know that I am serious about making these changes. You're going to start to notice things will start to change. They will start to fall into place. It happens with clients all the time. I actually had one of my clients today this is actually really cool. Yesterday, she overheard her kids on the phone One of them is her son, who was actually apologizing to his ex-girlfriend for not being very respectful and not being very nice. This is my client's son. So her changing was actually helping to make her children, her daughter and her son, start to look at things differently. And then this same person today got a message from an ex to call and apologize that he was sorry for his bad behavior. So bam, it was like one thing after the other. Once we start to make those changes, it allows the other people to take a look at themselves and say, hey, I need to make change too. We don't make those changes for anybody else. We don't make those changes for, those sorries and all of that. We make it for ourselves. But you will see that once you start standing up for yourself, using your voice, setting those boundaries, enforcing them, things are going to start to change around you for the positive. At first, it might be uncomfortable, and at first, there might be people that you lose. It might change the people that you're surrounding yourself with, but it will be for the better, and you will feel heard. So if there's no other questions for me, thank you so much for tuning in. Have a wonderful week this week. Keep posting, keep learning, and never forget, you're way stronger than you realize.